Brain Software, episode 279. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump. Is he Hitler? Is he Hitler at all? Well, we're going to talk about that and a lot more stuff. We're going to talk about logical fallacies. We're going to talk about all kinds of crazy things that people make arguments out of and how that is hypnotic and how you can defend yourself against bad thinking. We're going to talk about universals, a kind of word, several words in fact, that people tend to use when they're being defensive, accusatory, or even self-destructive, right? And we're going to talk about awesome ways of helping people, the universal way to help people when you don't know how to help them. Oh, it might surprise you. We're going to talk about grammar infractions and horrendous use of language, because that's always a fun topic.
Yes, it is.
And we got a few more things. So let's get started. Mike, can we have our disclaimer?
Yes, we issue a lot of disclaimers in this podcast for various reasons. And of all the disclaimers we've ever used for any and all purposes, this one is the most recent. Govern yourself accordingly.
Hey, Scroll, what's going down, Pouch? It's that time again, man, when the Raven steps down from the busted palace and asks that musical question. Whatever happened to that old peace and quiet we used to know in 1967, the summer of love? These are days of victory. But seriously, folks, can you really stop us? Can you stop us at all? So let's welcome to the very nexus of hypnotic power and ability. Hurrah!
The man who once had the Prime Minister of Canada as his opening act. True. The only hypnosis trainer you will ever need.
Probably true.
Because he is the Keith Richards of hypnosis. Ladies and gentlemen, we introduce to you Mike Mandel.
Yes, Christopher, let's rock it. This is a good, interesting podcast.
Yeah, interesting way I delivered that intro.
I liked it.
All right, now we said at the beginning we're going to talk about Donald Trump, and we're going to talk about Hitler, and we're going to keep this very, what's the word when you're not
neutral.
Non-partisan?
Neutral.
What do you freaking
We're
call
Switzerland.
That?
We're neutral.
Anti-partisan? Not anti. We're like against.
No.
Yeah, non-partisan, I think is the term. Yeah, Switzerland. We're going to introduce some things to you, and we expect there may be some colorful comments. We don't care.
Because remember, guys, this podcast from its inception has been apolitical.
Yes.
We don't take sides in anything. I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in politicians. So we're just looking.
I love that.
It's my wife's line, but we're looking purely at things from a point of view of language and linguistics and how people talk and discuss things. So that's it.
And how it affects your brain, how your unconscious response. It's going to be an interesting conversation. So let's move on. We're going to quickly mention that we have, by the time this goes live, our Architecture of Hypnosis, the May class is totally sold out. The November class is open, is starting to fill up. There's plenty of space right now, but it's worth checking it out. Go to MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can check out the events page. You can learn about the Architecture of Hypnosis. If coming to Toronto to learn hypnosis with us for a week grabs your attention, do that. If it doesn't, I recommend you go to mmhgift.com. That's MMH, like Mike Mandel Hypnosis, gift, like a present that you put under your Christmas tree if you celebrate Christmas, mmhgift.com. That will lead you to our free recording, Mike's free recording, Journey to the Castle. It's a really awesome hypnosis track, and it will give you the feedback's been coming in since we launched this.
Are you serious?
I'll start sending you more of the emails because I think you'll enjoy them. I save a bunch of them. People are loving it. The experience is quite unlike anything you've ever heard. I almost said really unique, but we'll get to that later.
You said Journey to the Castle. Vanessa, in support, she said when she listened to it, she felt like she was living a movie. Like it was between
people
a movie and
and they're like, they wake up from chats going, yes, like, yeah, they feel victorious. Anyway, it's really cool.
All right, man.
Check it out. That's what we wanted to quickly promote to you, the free stuff. Let's get on with the show. That's the way I'm talking today. All right, two kinds of problems in life, Mike.
Oh, yes.
We've got lighthouses and we've got labyrinths.
Nice that they both start with L's.
And you wrote a really nice open mic newsletter. In fact, I think this is the first time we're bringing open mic Sunday newsletter content into the podcast.
Probably.
It's kind of fun to have a conversation about it. But this email got so much positive feedback. So many people loved this. Hit the nail on the head for them.
Buddy, my wife sent it on to some of her pickleball community. And they wrote back and said, like, this is freaking brilliant. I needed to hear this today. Like,
yeah. So let's talk about it. Okay. And I'm just going to shut up and listen.
All right, buddy. Well, Lighthouses and Labyrinths. Well, we know a labyrinth from Greek mythology, which of course was where Theseus had to go when Ariadne gave him the ball of twine, and there's a minotaur to kill you. There's all this wonderful stuff, which very much ties into mindscaping and subway tunnels and all these wonderful things. But the bottom line is, the newsletter was, I was framing two kinds of problems, and this hit me one morning when I'd awakened and just had to write it right away. The idea is, if your problem is like a lighthouse, you have your target, you have this light on the horizon that's flashing, drawing your attention. All you have to do is set your compass towards it and keep going. Just stay the course the whole time.
Right.
So it's when it's a lighthouse problem, when you know what you have to do.
Right.
Which is essentially keep moving towards the outcome you want.
Right. If I know that I need to go get a new job because, Mike Mandel hypnosis, not so much fun.
Crushing.
I know I have to retrain myself, or I know I have to change my diet, or I have to work out if I want to get fit and get that summer six pack, or whatever the case may be, right? I want to get more flexible. I got to stretch more. I want to get smarter. I know I have to read more, listen to podcasts like this one. So those are the kinds of things you're talking about. Those are lighthouse problems. You know where you're
see what it is, or you can call it, your North Star, your pole star, what you're focusing on to navigate your life. And you're making shifts to ensure that you are still focused on that lighthouse or on that pole star. Say a lighthouse because it'll keep you away from the reefs, away from the crashing into other ships, all of these things. And that's where incrementalism that we've spoken of many, many times will also fit in, the idea that you can get anywhere by making a large number of microscopic decisions. They don't have to be huge, life-changing decisions at first. So you're just going to persevere. Now, on the other hand, if you have a labyrinthine problem,
that's a totally different sort of problem, is it?
That's when you're locked in this labyrinth where you can't find the way out. You're banging your head on different doors. Banging your head on different doors to try to find your way out. It's not working. And it becomes frustrating. It becomes frightening sometimes if you have a problem you simply cannot escape from. And in those situations, to keep moving is rarely, if ever, the answer, because it keeps you going around repetitive patterns. It keeps you searching for things that may not be there.
You're just doing the same things that you've always been doing that haven't been working, and the keep moving is usually just try harder kind of thing.
Yeah, gosh, which doesn't work for anybody.
And what are some examples of these kinds of problems? I'm thinking typically it could be relationship issues where you feel like you're banging your head against a wall, you can't get through to another person, or you can't come to an agreement. And you don't really know how to solve the problem, which is why it's a labyrinth problem.
Well, yeah. And so you keep applying the correct solution, which does not work despite being the correct solution. So you can think of it, if somebody has, they've been trying to lose weight for 5 or 6 years, and they're looking at the friends who've trimmed down remarkably like I have. That's right. I just saw a picture of myself from our early recordings wearing that bright pink shirt that was huge because I couldn't get it around my gut. My face was
the
red.
early days.
And I was red-faced because of inflammation.
You were closer to 190 pounds
I was
then.
a quarter pound away.
And the thing is, everyone standing in front of their own mirror in their own bathroom naked can judge themselves. You probably would have judged yourself and thought, okay, I don't look great. But in clothes, it hides. No one would have looked at you and thought, oh, this guy's overweight. But you felt that you were.
It was terrible. Yeah. I wasn't morbidly obese or anything. But that was a quarter pound away from 190.
Yeah.
Which is way too much.
And now?
155. So I was like 35 pounds different. But I feel great. Now, the thing is, say you're someone who sees your friends losing the weight, they're doing different things, and for 5 or 6 years, I've got to lose it, I'm going to lose it. And you keep going, well, I'm just going to do a water fast for 10 days.
Yeah.
Not going to exercise. I'm not going to change what I do eat when I eat. It's just do the water fast. Okay, I've lost 7 pounds now. Okay. And back to drinking giant root beers and eating. You're smiling. You don't say it.
No.
I know why you're smiling. But it doesn't work. It's just still applying the same solution because it's an easy one, because water fasting, you don't really have to do anything. It's just not doing something.
That feels like a bit of a hybrid, because the person still instinctively should know what they need to do, but they keep applying the wrong solution.
Right.
So it feels like there's a lighthouse there in the problem, but they're not looking at the lighthouse. They're stuck in their internal labyrinth.
This will work.
And there are other problems that are clearly pure labyrinth problems, right?
Labyrinthine, yeah.
I mean, maybe a good example of that could be, let's say, out of the personal problems or whatever, let's say a kid trying to solve a complex math problem in school, And if they don't know how to do it, if they don't know the little algebra trick that they have to do or something, and this is on my mind, of course.
Right, of course, because you're an algebra boy.
I help both my kids through, their
here.
their high school, like calculus and functions and all that stuff. So I see these, year after year. Oh, you have to remember to do this little trick. Well, if you don't know the trick, you're in a freaking labyrinth and you will never solve that problem. So there are tricks to unlocking some hidden door in a labyrinth that lets you escape metaphorically.
Right, and sometimes it's a matter of getting the proper resource. Now, let's say it's something like a kid who's bullied all the time, and his parents say, well, just be nice to everybody, and they'll stop bullying. It doesn't work, because it aggravates bullies, it sets them off
and
even
the kid
more.
doesn't know what to do, and the parents don't know what advice to give them, and that's a labyrinth problem.
That's a labyrinthine problem. And whereas if they then get some training in British Jiu-Jitsu or something, secretly train for 6 months, come back to school and kick the snot out of a bully, as I would now, everything changes, because now they've escaped it. They've got the resources they need. What?
Yeah, well, he's not just Danny anymore.
Just Danny anymore.
You're still just Danny. You're still having the same old problem. We haven't brought that commercial up in the podcast.
But let's pause on this for a second. So the point is, you must identify, is this something where you're repeating patterns over and over and expecting a different result? That's a classic labyrinth. In which case, you have to wait. Sometimes you just have to take a pause and think it through and
wrote that.
Get the resources you require.
You wrote that. Give yourself permission to pause before you go, oh, yeah, exactly. I can think of so many problems in my life where I did the same thing you're describing.
Red when you said that.
Well, I'm just thinking of engineering problems, even like in my prior career, where, you think this should work. Yeah. This design should work. Like it should work.
Yeah.
Just do it again. No. And then you realize, pause.
Yeah.
Think from root cause analysis. In engineering, we would call it root cause analysis, right? Mm-hmm. Actually evaluate every single step of the way and then solve the problem. In personal problems, I guess I think we know where this is the same thing, but it's obviously not quite as scientific, but you still have to think from first principles and evaluate the cause.
So if you were dealing with a personal problem, so you're a teenager and you had a pattern that was just repetitive, could be anything. It could involve,
you're going to make me laugh,
visualizations or whatever. The psychologist would say to you, just stop doing it.
Just stop. Okay, there you go. So
but when you escape from the labyrinth of old patterns and things that go nowhere, then you look for your North Star. Then you look for your lighthouse. Then you look for what you can continue. You've got to aim at your outcome and continuously move towards it. Even tiny steps will get you there.
And usually you need resources, and the resource becomes your lighthouse out of the labyrinth, doesn't it? Whoa,
and a piece of saran wrap becomes Sir Francis Drake. They're like, what are you talking about?
I think you know.
All right. I think we got enough out of this.
Oh, okay. So the Lighthouse and Labyrinth problems, it's actually on our blog as well. So the newsletter goes out first. If it's a good enough letter. No, usually we end up putting them on the blog too. Okay. So that is at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/blog if you'd like to read what Mike wrote, and you can get on our mailing list just by opting into like our Journey to the Castle at mmhgift.com. Then you're automatically going to be on our newsletter list, and you'll get the open mic newsletters, which are really fun. Brilliant. Okay, let's talk about, actually, I'm going to change things up. Let's do what we said we were going to do in the beginning. Let's immediately move to what we're calling Reductio ad Trumpum.
Right. Now, why are we calling that, Chris?
All right. So I'll give you the build up. I'll set the stage here because I thought this was kind of humorous. So right now, as we are recording this in early April 2025, the Canadian government is holding the federal election, and you keep looking at your clock like we're running out of time.
I was looking and see what the date was.
Oh yeah, it's the
actual date was.
So we're in good shape here, but time-wise and date-wise, anyway. Canada's going through an election. So as often is the case, the one party will attack the other, and the other party will attack the one, and they all attack each other, right? They usually negative. Interestingly, we were talking about this, that negative messaging sells better than positive messaging. Psychological truth. So it actually, even though it seems kind of dickish and jerky that they all attack each other, technically, if one was just the nice guy, we have this wonderful plan for Canada, and the other party goes, they're idiots. They voted against this good thing, and they're bad people. these guys making the negative claim will get more attention and probably win, or at least win more votes as a result of it. So I think that psychologically explains why they attack each other.
Okay.
Right? Notice how we're not taking any sides.
No,
here.
we're not.
In this particular case, what drew my attention was an ad from Canadians' Liberal Party of Canada. So this is the party that used to be Justin Trudeau as leader. Now he's out. There's an election. There's a temporary prime minister. Anyway, the Liberal Party put out an ad that was against Pierre Poilievre, who's the leader of the Conservative Party. Right. And their ad went something like this. Pierre Poilievre is obsessed with crowd sizes. Who does that remind you of? That's sort of the text. I think it said, it said pretty much that. I didn't write down the exact words.
You're obviously not going to be thinking Taylor Swift. You're supposed to be going, right to
so
Hitler.
People are supposed to go, well, Donald Trump. Now, there was a video to go along with it, right? And so I think it starts with Pierre referencing, we had a lot of people. It's great to see so many of you in the crowd tonight, or something like that. And then it immediately cuts to Trump in one of his rallies saying, I can't imitate him as well as who's the guy, who's the freaking celebrity that imitates him on Saturday Night Live? It's hilarious.
No idea. I didn't even know Saturday Night Live was still on.
Anyway, and it's like, huge crowds, lots of people, I'm doing an Arnold.
Christopher Walken.
I'm doing it really.
Schwarzenegger
Here, I'll do Christopher Walken impersonating Trump. Yeah, huge crowds, huge. Anyway, the idea.
Arnold.
Christopher Walken doing Arnold.
Doing Trump.
Trying to very badly do Donald Trump.
Got it.
Anyway, that's the argument, right? Is, hey, look at this guy talking about this big crowd, and look at this guy who, bad man, also talks about crowds, therefore, this guy, bad man, too. And this is essentially the argument that they're making, right?
Yeah.
And now what I loved is the response. There was a lady, I assume her name was Stacy on X, and I screenshot this for you.
You did,
and I think I put it in my notes here. Exactly right. She wrote, "Oh man, I didn't put it in the notes, but it went something like this." She goes, "Well, the leader of the Liberal Party, his name is Mark Carney," and she said, "Well, Mark Carney wears a suit, and Hitler wore suits. So, am I doing that right?" And I thought it was hilarious because here was someone calling out the use of logical fallacy. And in this case, it was, what do you call the logical fallacy when you just say, well, so-and-so is like this other person who does so-and-so? It's really a red herring argument, or...
It's some sort of false connection.
Yeah, you could say red herring because it's not relevant that someone talking about their crowd sizes. There we go, pretty irrelevant. But the fact that the call out of this, the "Am I doing this right?" was a use of what we now know as Reductio ad Hitlerum. That is an actual name of an actual logical fallacy.
Reducing it to Hitler. Now, what I find particularly interesting, and I have to evoke this at this time because it's really chiding this man beside me, because about 2 years ago I wanted to mention Hitler in a joke in a podcast,
and I said you couldn't.
I'm a Brit. We fought Germany and we won. Let's never forget that. But Chris said to me afterwards at lunch, "You cannot mention Hitler in the podcast ever." Now you mentioned
it's okay
him
now apparently.
About 16 times.
I know.
I've had to mention him multiple times to point out that you mentioned him. But it's okay now.
Yeah, we're kind of not talking about him, but anyway. Very, very bad.
But my wife had a meme someone sent her, and it showed someone like, an innocuous person. It could be someone like Nicolas Cage or something at lunch eating a salad.
Okay.
Nicolas Cage eats salad and said, Hitler ate salad too.
Yeah. So there you go.
Your conclusion there. What?
It's a great absurd point to make to demonstrate the logical fallacy, to demonstrate how absurd it is, right? So there we go. Anyway, we thought that was pretty funny because essentially it is now turning Reductio ad Hitlerum into what we're calling Reductio ad Trumpum. So comparing anyone to Trump, and there's obviously something like half of the United States that thinks Trump bad man, and then there's another, approximately half, whatever. The other half is, fans or whatever supporters, whatever you call it. There's haters and there's lovers and there's something in between. And so you're going to resonate when you make an argument like this. So anyway, Reductio ad Trumpum. Now, where are we going with this? So what the heck are really logical fallacies, and talk to them about logical fallacies and the bypassing of critical thinking. And it's hypnotic.
Logical fallacies are shortcuts for people. And when they become hardwired in, like appeal to authority, that's a classic one. Just because someone is an authority doesn't mean they're correct. And so that's why people ask their doctor for like financial advice. One guy said, I asked my doctor if I should buy gold. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
His doctor's got a degree in medicine. He's not a freaking gold merchant. He doesn't work at a mine in South Africa.
Yeah.
So it's using expertise in one area to confer expertise across the board. And that's an obvious logical fallacy. But because these are shortcuts, because pretty well everyone except he and I do them all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Universal.
There we go. We're getting to that.
But you can make them up. And when you make them up, you can make them ridiculous. I mean, when Taylor Swift came to Toronto and did her 17 concerts or whatever and brought a lot of money into Toronto. God bless her. She did a great job. I saw on video the motorcade when she came across the garden with all the police and everything. Well, John F. Kennedy was in a motorcade.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, there's zero connection. But the brain immediately goes, let's map this across and find comparisons, find common elements.
So when something is particularly emotional, that's the key, right? If you can draw a bridge to something else that's very emotional, all of a sudden that emotion gets attached in the brain to that other thing. So Trump is an emotion-inducing word these days, right? Unless you're talking about cards and, my card trumps your card, haha, whatever. People use that, though, now to trigger the emotion.
Has your Tesla been vandalized at all?
No.
There's probably not much of that going on in Canada.
No, I've not really seen any of that happen in Canada. And it's actually quite an interesting phenomenon because the people who would have bought, let's say, Teslas 6-7 years ago, more likely would have been in the United States, I think, on the Democratic side, as opposed to the Republican side.
Because of the eco bent. And,
just the whole green stuff and all that. So now it's like, people's car gets vandalized and it's someone who's like, what the hell, man? I mean, I just wanted to, help the environment or something.
Well, that's the abject ludicrosity of it is, I'm pissed off with some politician, so I attack your Tesla in Canada. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's a bit nutty. So that actually is a really good demonstration of how emotions take away logic and literally make you stupider in the moment.
Yes,
right?
And especially when you add bandwagon.
Right,
when you have a lot of people thinking the same way.
Exactly, bandwagon
self-perpetuating.
is a logical fallacy.
Yes, it is.
Thinking, right?
Everybody's doing it, right?
It's also called appeal to majority, right?
Yes.
Well, everybody says that, whatever the argument is.
But truth isn't determined by majority.
Right.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? I mean, it's look through science, Piltdown Man.
There you go.
Java Man and all these things. Everybody thought they were real, but...
So if there's anything we can help you understand here, it's that by understanding that there is an emotional connection being used,
that's it.
Step away from it, dissociate, take the perceptual position of third position and observer and go, is there any actual logic here to connect those? When that happens, you step outside of that emotional trance, that hypnotic trance.
And you say, where's the actual evidence that this is true? Looking for provable evidence instead of just...
And that's a hell of a lot more useful. So whether you're a supporter of this person or that person, just step back, look at the actual evidence and decide for yourself. But that'll help you getting closer to the truth than being caught up in logical fallacies.
Absolutely.
But that said, I guess the Liberal Party of Canada's ad would probably have been an effective ad in that moment. Even though we're calling it out, other people called it out. Mm-hmm. Many people won't. They'll go, oh yeah, you're right, damn it. Yeah, exactly. There you go. All right. So I think we've probably beaten that one.
We've beaten it to death. Yeah.
Beaten it to death. Let's move on let's talk about the...
Bob Gray's dad used to say when kids would go on and on with a joke on and on, he said, all right, don't tear the arse.
Let's talk about universals, then grammar, and we'll see how much time we have left. Because we're getting a little, but I wanted to make sure we got to the good stuff, right? Let's do the universals. Fine points. This actually came from a conversation that I was having with my daughter, and she was telling me about something happening in her own life and the response that someone was giving to a situation. I'll just keep the details very bland. There was a situation going on, and the response that she saw was full of universal language. And I thought, oh, so I taught her about this. And then I thought, oh, we're going to talk about this in the podcast because we haven't talked about this for a long time. And, oh, I put the book over there. I learned about this in Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power.
Yes, good book.
Which I think we've said on the podcast, I read because you recommended it on your reading list, even though you incorrectly later claimed that the reference was to Awaken the Giant Within. And I proved to you.
Two books.
Yeah. They're both great books. Universals are, what are universals?
Universals are when we extrapolate on a single point and make it every, always, never. We turn it into a
Nobody,
principle.
everybody.
You know, you always do this.
Yeah.
You never listen to anything I say. Well, I'm listening to you now. Doesn't that count as one time? Yeah.
Yeah. So people will, and this is in the model of NLP, these are called generalizations, right? So
I think the generalizations in every freaking model.
Yeah, well, in NLP, I mean, specifically, we've got generalizations, deletions, and distortions.
The three
You
big.
could argue it's a distortion, but it's really a generalization. So using these words like always, oh, you always come home late from work.
Right.
You're never on time. You never cook dinner. You always leave your dirty dishes in the sink.
Every time you open your mouth,
Yeah.
you argue with somebody.
Yeah, all of the every that's another one. Everyone, every time. These are universals, and it occurred to me I'd never thought about this before. Finally, at the age of 50, I realized that I suspect, and we're curious if you guys observe this to be true. Universals tend to be used when people are accusing someone else of something, defending themselves against an accusation, or possibly this one, defeating talk. You're talking about yourself in universals. I never can succeed. No one ever likes me. Yes, exactly. Same idea, right? So self-accusatory, self-defeating, or accusing others. So whether you're being defensive and saying, well, I don't expect everybody to, whatever the case may be.
Right. Yeah, you bring this up in every single podcast we do, and I can't figure.
Get us.
So what can people do if a situation comes up where they're facing an accusation? So you're always whatever. I'm going to throw in you're always wearing a hat on the podcast. Oh, actually, you're not.
Yeah, to hide my Jason Statham hair.
If you're accused of something with always, and you know that it's not actually true, it may be true that most of the time, and you may be, let's say you take the position of being willing to listen and willing to change. But you certainly don't want to be accepting that you're always
No, and you asked how to deal with it. The key is you have to do a verbal challenge. You have to challenge the credibility of what they're saying, the veracity of it. So you're going to say something like, you know what, always, like every single time? Well, maybe not every time, but a lot of the time. Okay, well, a lot of time I can work with. What are those times? You begin to break it down systematically. The key is if you come in all sarcastic and
every time.
It's not going to help. But you have to challenge these verbal problems because otherwise they slip by and people act as though they're true.
Right. So you want to take on an attitude of caring, especially like if this is someone you have an important relationship with, you want to listen. You don't want to accept the universal. I'd say you want to unpack it. You want to stretch it and break it because they go, oh, well, not every single time. Yeah, you did put your laundry away last week. Okay, now the belief has at least been broken. So the universal's gone.
And then you can move towards solutions.
What is it that you'd like to have happen?
What would you like to have happen instead?
And that's actually, it's going to lead into, if we have time for it, our universal. Actually, let's just sneak it in right here.
All right.
So how do you fix things when you don't know how to fix them? You freaking ask, what do you want?
Yes.
Right.
You have to identify the target state. You have to identify the lighthouse or the polar star, so that they have something to move towards, because change happens when people start moving, not when they think about changing.
Yeah. So you could go from I washed the laundry, I folded, I put it on the bed
Talk about laundry a
whatever.
lot.
Yeah. And I'm just using it as an example. And you never put it away. Okay. Never? Well, I did it last week. Yeah. Well, you usually don't. You let it sit there too long. Okay. What would you like to have happen? Well, I want it to be put away within 24 hours of it being there. I don't want any mess, You know, I go to a lot of, okay, so you want it to be put away. Great. Now you have some information you can work with.
Yes, and that's the key. Start to question the universal and then begin to look for options, alternatives.
Right. So you're taking someone out of their, because they're in a trance. They're in the accusation universal trance. You can break them from that trance, get back to a little bit of logic, get them into a new trance of cooperation and understanding.
Are you in that one now?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was watching you make little micro movements, anchoring these strange movements to my. All right. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so where do you want to go from this?
I think that, I mean, I didn't want to beat it to death.
No,
the whole generalizations. But yeah, maybe we would love to know in the comments, what are you hearing in terms of universals?
Yeah.
What are you seeing in your own life? Are you using them against yourself? Are you using them on other people? Are other people using them on you? And tell us the story about how you dealt with it. We'd love to hear
that's
it.
good. Now,
all right.
we have a commercial we have to go to.
Oh, my goodness.
We'll come back to horrendous grammar and language infractions. I said inflection.
All right. Let's do it.
Tonight on the Sir Francis Drake Network. It's the Honey Hallmark Show, kids.
Honey, honey Hallmark. It's the Honey Hallmark Show. Honey, honey Hallmark. Did you hear? It's the Honey Hallmark Show.
She's got frizzy red hair and she drives a school bus.
But she's no different than the rest of us. She's Honey, honey Hallmark. The girl who loves greeting cards.
Stop singing and finish your homework.
The girl who loves greeting cards.
Yeah.
On tonight's episode, Honey takes a road trip. In light of all the turmoil in today's world, Honey craves a place where life is small, life is quiet, and life is good. After checking in with ChatGPT, Honey finds out that her dreams of idyllic place of yesteryear still exists, even in the modern world. And it's not Willoughby, that horrifying Twilight Zone episode of small town funeral homes, but it's some place that everybody needs if they look deep in their hearts. So to that end, Honey heads north across the mostly undefended border and arrives in Canada, the land of hockey, Tim Hortons donuts, and some of the finest rednecks anywhere. And after just a few more hours, always heading north, Honey sees the sign that she's arrived in her paradise. Welcome to Meaford, the home of the human litter box. But Honey doesn't just visit Meaford. She decides to stay. A single glance at the muddy farmlands with their friendly keep out signs, the ditches filled with glass from broken beer bottles, cigarette butts, and raw sewage call out for attention. Honey has arrived at last. And what a home it is. And when Honey buys and renovates the Red Rooster Diner to look like a yellow school bus and marries Brado while having secret affairs with both Eddard and Duder at the same time, her life is finally complete. But then the urgent phone call comes from the principal, and she realizes that she forgot to drop the grade 6 children off at school and brought 30 of them with her as she illegally crossed the Canadian border. Imagine all the zany fun that develops when she attempts to hide the kids among the skunks in Eddard's perfume factory, only to discover the principal and the mayor of Meaford armed with tasers and hammering on the door with a warrant for her arrest and execution signed by the President of the United States. Yes, kids, it's the Honey Hallmark Show tonight at 8:04 p.m. on the 51st State Network.
Okay, let's look at some of these horrendous grammar inflections, which drive me freaking mad.
What a great way to end the podcast. We can be sneaky and sneak them in. Oh, that was actually
fine. You're going to go to snuck.
Yes, snuck is one of the words that is not a real word.
It's become a word which is hard. The word is sneaked. He sneaked in.
Yes.
It's like the pipe leaked. The pipe did not luck.
Yeah, I did not snuck. I sneaked. Okay.
He peeked into the room. He didn't puck into the room. Okay.
But there's a few that we want to talk about for sure here.
I know, and I know I'm peculiar about this, and it annoys me. A very good friend of mine the other day said mischievous, and I just cringed.
Mischievous. Yeah, it's mischievous.
Mischievous, yes. And she was amazed that it wasn't a word.
Yes.
But she said she should not have questioned me on it.
Yes. Speaking of should, one that I regularly see, and you cannot blame autocorrect autocorrect
I like
for
that
this.
autocorrect,
I love
yeah.
autocorrupt. It's a great term because it actually, so remember I mentioned this morning.
Yes, correct.
I was talking about how when we shoot vertical videos, we don't need to actually put the camera vertical. We could leave it horizontal and crop because it's a 4K image. And as I'm writing the word vertical, it autocorrupts into erotic.
How I know you sent me that.
We
and I'm
don't
looking
need
at it
to
going,
shoot erotic. I'm like,
how can
erotic.
it possibly get from vertical to erotic?
because I hit a. I think I hit
some erotic things.
I
that
hit
can
a
be best
space
performed vertically,
somewhere. We're talking over each other too much. That's funny. I think I hit the space key and it was trying to read a separate word and it turned that into erotic, which is really weird. Anyway, vertical is not erotic, unless it is, I suppose. So, but this is, I'm getting back to should and could and would.
Yeah.
People have this nasty habit all the time. Every person is always, universals, haha, writing should of, could of.
Should have.
It's freaking have. It's the verb to be or to have or to
be.
not to be. Sorry, to be. Like
not to
think of the infinitive form. I was thinking of French, like être, avoir, and all that. But basically, in this case, it's the verb is to have. Right? I have. You have.
Yeah.
Should have is a conditional or whatever you call it in grammar. I don't know. Would have. I would. It's not. We say would have because apostrophe VE, the contraction. But when you're freaking writing it, if you want to write it as it sounds when you're speaking it, then use the contraction.
Yeah.
Should have, could have, would have. Don't freaking write should of OF. That is just wrong, and you look like
that's a bad one. I agree.
Like a moron.
I could be more annoyed with that than I was, but I'm going to show you one that this has really bothered me for some time. In 1985, the Toronto Star ran a short story contest, and
you won it.
I did. I won a nice prize in it, but this was done on a typewriter. I did it freehand. I wrote a story called The Quick Kill, which is these two secret agents, one in the U.S. and one in Russia, and they're gradually moving together, obviously for one to kill the other. But when you get to the final sentence, you realize it's the World Chess Championship. And so I won a prize. It was published in the Toronto Star. That was my first short story. But here's the thing. I wrote it by hand. Our friend Holly had a typewriter, so she typed it out, double space for me, counted the words. And she made some corrections in my grammar.
Oh, nice. Fixed it for you.
It was, the claw hammer fell from the table.
No, it's fell
from the table.
Or
and she changed it to fell off of the table.
From is correct.
But so what happened was the Toronto Star gets this, fell off of the table. They were reading it, go, I guess he's a dick after all. They corrected back to from, which is what I did. I wanted to phone them. I was so incensed. You think I said like...
Yeah. Just tell her tell them your webmaster screwed it up.
Yeah, I will.
Remember when you used to call me your webmaster?
Yes, I do.
Oh man, that's funny.
Well, irregardless.
That's a really good point though. So it's fell from.
Yeah.
Could you say fell off the table as well?
Sure.
Nothing wrong with that, but not off of.
Right. Off of is meaningless. It's pointless. Yeah.
From the table. Okay. There we go. Now, irregardless.
It bounced off the floor. It didn't bounce off of
the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Irregardless. The only problem with irregardless is it isn't
not
a word. It's not a word. The word is regardless. Well, regardless of that, not irregardless. Who is the dick?
That reminds me
up with that? I can't figure it out.
I could care less.
Oh gosh.
I could care less.
Care less is the proper one. You're showing how little you care. You couldn't possibly care any less. When you're saying I could care less, the answer is, well, go care less then. Like, what?
I think it comes from think about when you first learned to sign your name. Most people, they sign their whole name all pretty. And then eventually they get lazier and lazier. And it's a jumbled mess.
Scroll,
And I think the natural tendency we have to shorten things causes people to go from I couldn't care less to I could care less. It's just a little shorter. Except that it means the exact opposite, right?
It means the opposite of what you
don't sign your name Mike Mandel and then next thing it's Jeff.
Well, irregardless.
Oh, that's another one. We've talked about this before, and it technically isn't a grammar infraction, but we're also talking about language infractions here. And it's this natural freaking habit people have sneaked into their lives to say, Well, yeah. Anyway, and apparently there's a freaking rule about this. It really starts with what you said first. My daughter was explaining this because we were talking about this at the dinner table. Yeah.
I think,
what does that mean?
You got to slow it down and make it more pensive.
No.
So it's like,
no.
Since the Swiss everybody was armed and they were neutral, nobody invaded them.
Or no.
Just back and forth between the two, as though giving each side of the argument and equal benefit, credit, and time.
Now, come up with a pattern interrupt for this. So this is maybe the challenge for Brain Software Podcast listeners. What can they do as a pattern interrupt when someone does the
Stab them with a tactical pen.
How about just, which one is it? Is it yeah or no? Just
I go through this with my wife all the time. Enneagram 6. She either says no or she says maybe. It's the K kibosh stamp, right? So we can no kibosh, or it'll be maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I ask when someone says maybe, I say, is that a yes or a no?
That's what I say too. That's what I say too. I guess maybe doesn't feel as difficult as saying yes. I can't get. You said yes. Okay, good. Maybe you're right.
I agree with you. Yeah, as an agreement in this case, as opposed to a
Wait, let's just brief. I know we're getting behind here, but let's just touch on this very quickly. The thing about you said the tendency to shorten things now.
Yes.
And what was the context you used it?
Could have. Yeah. Could care. Sorry, it was couldn't care less to could care less.
Right.
I think people are just shrinking.
Now, when people shrink things, sometimes you can lose a large amount of the comedic element. And I look at this as a Brit. Yes, I live in Canada. Yes, I'm a Canadian citizen. But I'm British by birth, and we won the war. Let's not forget that. Let's World War II. The rest of the world helped, but we won it. Now, the interesting thing about it is this contraction thing. The British line is so brilliant. When someone says something, you can make almost anything sound obscene.
Yes,
by changing to adding. As the actress said to the bishop.
Yes.
So it's like, we better put that on top.
It's the British version of that's what. The original and better version of the American. That's what she said.
I hate that. It's so blunt. Oh, yeah, that's what she said. It's a contraction that has lost the drama. It's lost the flavor. It's lost the window dressing of, as the actress said to the bishop. Right away, there's something wrong there. What's the bishop doing? Hanging around with a freaking actress.
Yeah.
So there's something untoward going on. Some sort of sort of sexual tryst or something. There's something behind the scenes.
It's right up there with.
And then the brain immediately seeks for an erotic component and finds it.
Yes, of course, which is funny and. Also, not erotic. The vertical turning into erotic. That's you just sneaked that word in again. That's hilarious.
Ready for this? Here's my answer.
Okay,
that's what she said.
I was
my hand.
I was just going to comment that the other British variant that I like much better is when you say in any joke. Trousers instead of pants.
Oh, of course.
It just makes it way funnier.
It's a much funnier word.
Don't know why.
Trousers are what I'm wearing. Like jeans are trousers. Yeah. Pants means underwear, like your shreddies.
Oh, there you go.
Your boxers or whatever. So when Paul Giles, I was in a Marks and Spencer's store, I said, I'm looking for some corduroy pants.
Yeah.
He just burst out laughing. He said, corduroy pants.
Like underwear.
Corduroy underwear.
If you say to somebody, what happened to your pants versus what happened to your trousers? There's just something to it.
Trouser to me sounds like one who trousers. He is a trouser.
Trousery.
Oh man!
All right, I think we're gonna have to end this one.
So let's go to the empowering question.
Yeah, we're gonna get you the empowering question for episode 279, and then we're gonna let you get on with the rest of your awesome day and awesome life. Right. Here's your empowering question. What is the one question you need to ask yourself to correct that one thing in your life that you refuse to look at and deal with, even though it's the elephant in the room and has been clamoring for resolution for far too long?
Wow, that's brilliant. And because we're running short, no metaphor.
No metaphor, but I will tell you, make sure you head on over to MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can get Journey to the Castle right from there, which is the awesome soundtrack rich experience. Hypnosis, you will have a freaking amazing trance experience if you get Journey to the Castle. If you're interested in learning hypnosis at this current moment in time, could always change. The way we're promoting the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy is just a $1 guest pass. It's 14 days of access to the whole thing. You get treated like you're an actual paying member, even though you just bought a $1 guest pass, and it doesn't automatically turn into a subscription unless you choose to make it so. So in other words, it automatically expires at the end of 14 days, which means it's essentially minus the
We
dollar.
don't bill you anything.
$1 freaking dollar to find out if our style of hypnosis training resonates with you, if you want to learn to be an awesome hypnotist. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Brilliant.
So let's
That's all I
just
got.
say it.
Good enough.
The magic ending.
Thanks once again.
And good night.